Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my first impressions plus on-feet video of the leather upper variation of the Under Armour SpeedForm CRM. Now inside the box, they do not include a string bag, but they do include an extra set of black laces to go along with the white ones already on the shoes. I'll give you guys a look at these on the shoes a little bit later in the video. And like I mentioned, other than that, all you're gonna find inside the box, as you can see, are the shoes themselves. So we'll get these guys out of the box really quickly, and we'll take a closer look at the leather upper variation of the Under Armour SpeedForm CRM, which I've personally been really excited about. I've been wearing the synthetic model over the last couple of weeks, and it didn't feel great at first, a little bit stiff, honestly, from out of the box, but after some break-in time, they feel very comfortable, and it's a very interesting shoe. Under Armour is really good at kind of creating their own unique products. They don't copy anybody, and that really comes through in this new SpeedForm model. And now that we have a leather upper variation, which is generally my preference when it comes to soccer cleats, I can't wait to try them out. And with that being said, I also think that these look absolutely fantastic, especially in this very simple, very bright white and black colorway. So in today's video, we're going to be going over all of the tech specs that you should know about the leather variation of the SpeedForm CRM. So if you are interested in learning more about this particular shoe, please stick around and watch the entire video. And be sure to give Under Armour a fair shake, guys. Under Armour has a really bad rep in the soccer world because the first couple of shoes they did come out with honestly weren't the greatest, but they've improved dramatically over the last couple of years. They've produced some of my personal favorite shoes that I've worn in the last couple of years, I would say. And this definitely seems like it could potentially be up there on my list of favorites just based on how they feel from right out of the box. So again, if you want to learn more, stick around and watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website, which will be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you will find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you will be able to pick these guys up below their normal $220 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair for yourself, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. So what's on offer with the SpeedForm CRM in the leather upper variation? What's interesting about the SpeedForm shoe in general is its one-piece heel liner, sock liner construction that we've really never seen before in a soccer shoe. Here's just a quick look at it. We're going to talk about it more in detail a little bit later in the video, but first off, I want to talk about the upper itself because this is technically the leather version of the SpeedForm CRM. And whenever you hear leather and synthetic version, obviously you expect the synthetic one to have a synthetic upper and the leather one to have a leather upper. And if you've read any tech specs on this new Under Armour SpeedForm CRM in leather, you may or may not have seen conflicting tech specs. And what I mean by that is some websites have this listed as a synthetic leather soccer shoe, while other websites have it listed as a calfskin natural leather soccer shoe, and that confused me a little bit. I know some of you guys have asked me details on this shoe, and I have answered those questions prior to actually getting them. The majority of the tech specs do say that this is a synthetic leather upper, but now that I finally have the shoe in my hands, I don't think it's synthetic at all. I think this is a natural leather upper, and I'll explain why right now. Now, when you get up close, you're gonna notice that the leather does look very premium. It is a calfskin leather upper as opposed to a kangaroo leather, so perhaps isn't as premium as it could be, but it still feels very, very nice and certainly looks the part. One thing that I always like to complain about with any leather shoe is the lack of leather, and there's no lack of leather on this shoe whatsoever. The entire upper is covered in nice, very premium feeling calfskin leather aside from the tongue, which I think is the giveaway in terms of determining whether or not this upper is actually natural leather or synthetic leather. The first thing that tells me that this is natural leather is just by how it reacts when you push your finger on it. It dimples, it creases, it just reacts just like natural leather would, and I've never seen that from a synthetic material before. It feels like natural leather to the touch on the very surface. It does have a matte finish. And like I said, you just don't get that same sensation from a synthetic material that you do get from a leather. And then when you remove the laces and you take a look at the split in the leather, that's very clearly natural leather with a lining backing it, as opposed to synthetic leather that you're going to find on the tongue, which you can see the seam looks completely different in where it's split. And if I put them side by side, which I can do right here, you can see that the two materials, one is very clearly synthetic, the other is very clearly leather. So you're gonna have a natural calfskin leather upper that has a thin yet decent thickness to it. It of course does have those SpeedForm kind of toe indents embossed into the actual toe, which I think look pretty cool. I know a lot of people don't like how that looks, and it really doesn't offer any performance benefits, but I think it looks pretty cool. It gives the shoe a much more modern look. And as far as natural leather shoes go, it's just a very modern, sleek looking shoe in general. So you're gonna get that natural leather touch across the entire upper, aside from where the tongue is located across the very top of the foot. But it too is a synthetic leather material that has a similar thickness to the rest of the shoe, so no major concerns there whatsoever. Moving on to the rear portion of the shoe, you are going to find a heel counter that is fully external, which I really like. That's no different coming from the synthetic variation. You're going to find that right here you have this fused on piece that I believe is what's hiding a seam where the two pieces of leather actually kind of attach to each other. So you have a heel piece and then of course a forefoot and toe piece. They can't make it one piece all the way around. That would be a little bit tricky. But even what they have managed to do here with only one seam on either side is pretty impressive, because the construction is just, like I said, very, very flawless. It definitely could pass as a synthetic shoe from a distance just based on the shape and how they've managed to just make this shoe look in general. It does have a lower cut in the heel, as you guys can see, and then what's inside the heel and just inside the shoe in general is what's very, very interesting. The heel liner material is a kind of padded mesh material, which historically tends to be a little bit slick, but I didn't have that issue in the synthetic version of this shoe, so I don't expect that to be an issue on the leather version either. It's got a nice amount of padding to it. It's very, very soft, and as you guys can see, I'm trying to get good lighting there, it's completely seamless. So it starts at the top and then flows directly into the sock liner or footbed area on the inside of the shoe. You have this very soft kind of memory foam like padding here in the heel as well as through the midfoot and forefoot area. It gives the shoe somewhat of a running shoe like sensation when you put this on your foot, and that is very, very soft. The foam does compress immediately, but it's still a different sensation than what I've experienced in any other soccer shoe with a standard insole, and that's always been a very strong point with Under Armour shoes in general, and I'm glad they've continued with something very, very unique in terms of how these shoes fit and feel underfoot in comparison to anything else out there on the market. You do have a fused on kind of covered up seam right here on both the lateral and medial side of the shoe, kind of lining up with these seams here on the outside, just to cover everything up, give it a nice smooth sensation against your foot. And then of course the part that is actually leather, the main portion of the upper, that is backed by a nice smooth synthetic suede material. So comfort on the inside of the shoe is very, very good. The one thing that you will notice when you put these on for the first time is that they are a little bit stiffer than you perhaps might expect, especially in the leather upper variation. But again, because it is one piece of leather, it's got some decent thickness to it. You just expect it to take a little bit of time to break in. It's going to soften up significantly after a couple hours of wear and feel that much more comfortable. They're not uncomfortable from out of the box, but they're a little bit stiffer than you perhaps might expect. Moving on to the rest of the shoe, the sole plate is made from a Pebax material that has some good thickness to it. It's still nice and flexible in the forefoot. You're going to have this flex point right here, whereas from here forward and here back, it's a lot stiffer. So it has a very solid sensation on your feet, despite being quite flexible. The stud pattern itself is nothing too out of the ordinary in terms of what we've seen from Under Armour in the past. All bladed studs, as you guys can see, but they do have some kind of rounded edges to them. So you get that nice aggressive kind of bladed stud feel in terms of how they bite and dig into the ground, but you never feel like you're locked in place. It's not an overly aggressive stud pattern, but it definitely does get the job done, and I have no complaints just from using it on the synthetic variation of the shoe. You're also going to see those little kind of indentations where the splits in the toe, the toe splits on the upper kind of line up on the sole plate. It looks very cool, it looks very modern, but isn't something that you're actually going to feel while you're wearing the shoe. So that texturing doesn't continue to the inside for those that perhaps may have been wondering. So that's pretty much it in terms of what you get here with the leather variation of the SpeedForm CRM. I prefer the quality of the leather upper in comparison to the synthetic model, just based on how they feel from right out of the box. But until I actually get to wear them and experience the shoe, I don't want to say that I definitely prefer it over the synthetic variation, which I have enjoyed over the last little while. The one thing that I should mention as well is that along the top of the actual lining, you do have some more of that synthetic suede, and then it's difficult to see on this particular colorway because it's white on white. There's a very clear grip, like a clear rubberized kind of sticky rubber lining the top part here, so it grips your sock and just prevents any kind of slippage at the back. Just the very, very top border of the heel and ankle area, which I really like. It's a nice little feature that I've never really seen before on a soccer shoe, but it does work very well on the SpeedForm CRM in both the leather and synthetic version. So that's what I have to say. Tech specs seem very, very promising just based on first impressions. Can't wait to try these things out. And with that being said, let's move on to a quick weigh-in so we can see how lightweight these guys are. In terms of weight, I thought we'd compare both the synthetic and leather variation of the SpeedForm CRM to see if there's any significant difference between the two. So I'm going to weigh both versions for you today in real time using the scale. Keep in mind these are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9.5 US. So this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the synthetic version, throw it on the scale, and you can see that it weighs in at 8 ounces exactly, the equivalent of 226 grams. Change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we're going to throw on the leather variation, and you can see that they weigh in at 8 ounces exactly, the equivalent of 227 grams. So they're technically 1 gram heavier than the synthetic variation, which is essentially no extra weight whatsoever. You can basically say that these are exactly the same weight, which is very interesting because we've been seeing a lot of this lately, not just from Under Armour, but from other brands as well, including Adidas, in terms of the leather and synthetic versions of the shoe not being that different from each other in terms of weight. So if you were considering getting a pair of SpeedForm CRMs and you were undecided on whether you want the synthetic or leather version of the shoe, weight should not be the deciding factor for fairly obvious reasons. Aesthetically, I'm a big fan of the SpeedForm in general. I think the synthetic model looks great, although I'm not a huge fan of the colorways, whereas the leather version has pretty much the exact same styling with that leather grain finish on the surface of the upper that I personally prefer the look of, and much more simple colorways. This is the white and black color, one of 2 launch colors for the leather variation of the shoe. The other one is black with silver logos, which I will be doing a video on very shortly, so stay tuned for that. This is my personal favorite of the two, mostly white, some black logos, and then of course you have a little bit of neon yellow in the actual heel liner material, but overall really, really clean looking shoe. It has a very modern, sleek aesthetic to it. I like that you have all white across the entire upper. The indents in the toe is a design element that I think gives the shoe a very modern look. I know not everybody likes it, but I'm personally a fan. You have your Under Armour logos on both the lateral and medial side, even the top of the tongue in black, slightly larger logo on the medial side, as you can see. SpeedForm branding on a diagonal here on the lateral side, and then of course the heel counter and sole plate is solid white in color. Here is a look at the black laces in the shoes. That's the extra set they include along with the white ones. They both look really, really good. If you want some more contrast, maybe the black laces are the better choice. I personally prefer the look of the white ones. And one question I know a lot of you guys will ask is how hard are these to keep clean? They're bright white leather shoes. They're not going to be easy to keep clean. The sole plate's going to show grass stains pretty early on. But what I will say is there's not a lot of exposed stitching on the upper, which is really what stains right away, and it's very difficult to clean. So aside from the stitching here, and along the sides of the actual upper, there's not much stitching to actually get dirty. So as long as you keep up with wiping these things down after pretty much every single use, the main part of the upper will stay relatively light for a pretty long time, which is really, really good. So really good looking shoe, really excited to wear them. And with that being said, let's move on to the on feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and of course what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the SpeedForms on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock white laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of white with black dot SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, be sure to check out the website www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they are not quite as stiff as what you're going to find from the synthetic model out of the box, but I'm not going to say that they're not stiff. There definitely is some break-in time required with this shoe, not only because it's leather, but just because of the design in general. It's pretty much one piece, and because of that, you're just going to have general stiffness out of the box. That's fairly normal, but I don't expect there to be any major issues with discomfort. The leather feels good on feet. It's not super flexible, but it does feel softer than, again, the synthetic variation of the shoe. So out of the box, I will say that these feel a little bit better than the synthetic model, but not by much. But again, with any leather shoe, after some wear time, I expect it to soften up significantly, even stretch a little bit, and just feel a lot more comfortable than they do from the get-go. There's some good tightness through the midfoot, so slippage is not going to be an issue at all. It has that nice lockdown feel that you would want from this style of a soccer shoe. And really, if I had one minor complaint regarding the fit, it's that the sides of the shoe do flare out a little bit right here, right above the top lace hole on both the left and right foot. It's not something that causes any heel slippage or any kind of instability whatsoever. It's just something that you notice right off the bat that doesn't seem to be an issue when it comes to actually wearing the shoe, because it is something I noticed with the synthetic model as well. In regards to the shape, it does have somewhat of an anatomical shape to it, so it's not a perfectly rounded toe. It comes to a bit of a point at the big toe and then kind of curls around. You have those indentations in the actual upper where your toes are supposed to be as well that you don't really notice while you're wearing the shoe, if that's something that you were wondering. And like I said, it does have more of a snug, secure, locked-in feel through the midfoot, so they're not particularly wide. If you have really wide feet, maybe not the best option for you, but of course these are leather, so you can expect to get some decent stretch out of them. In regards to sizing, I'm wearing a size 9.5 US, which is half a size larger than my usual size 9, and that's because the SpeedForms run a half size small. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that's it for my first impressions of the leather SpeedForm CRM from Under Armour. Can't wait to test these things out. Expect to see more follow-up content on this shoe, as well as the rest of the SpeedForm models on this channel in the very near future. And of course, once I get some testing time in these things, I will be following up with a detailed written review on the review page of my website, which will be the very first link down below in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you do want to check out that review page, you'll find the high quality images of this exact pair that I took myself that'll give you a better idea as to how these things actually do look in person. And you'll also find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $220 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below in the description, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions at all regarding the SpeedForm CRM in leather, leave them down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.